Brendan, thank you very much for joining us. Now, we did hear overnight that Mr Trump has given a 2-week time frame before he'll rule out joining into the conflict. Why 2 weeks?
Well, it gives diplomacy a chance. It gives his negotiators in the Middle East a chance to meet with the Iranians. I don't think we need to take it as an ironclad sort of sense that nothing will happen for 2 weeks. It may just be a diversion and something could happen over the next couple of days. But I think if we look at Trump, there is a bit of a pattern of making very big statements, as he did in his first term about North Korea, claiming he would rain fire and fury on them, and then backing back. He's tended to, when he's faced with an adversary that has the capacity to damage the United States and then to be a lot of fallout, as there would in this instance of tit-for-tat fighting, he has actually tended to back off. So that is my hope in this situation, but still it's pretty hard to call what will happen over the next few weeks.
Donald Trump has said that he believes there is a significant chance of negotiations taking place. How likely do you think that is?
Well, I think what's fascinating here is the Israelis have attacked Iran at the same time that all the United States sort of spy agencies are saying that the Iranians hadn't decided to move towards creating a nuclear weapon. So that's what the intelligence agencies are still saying. So I think on the back of that, and maybe the concern that any bombing of the very deep underground sites where research and where some of this material is held, undoubtedly they have the capacity to move towards a nuclear weapon in Iran, that might not be effective. The United States, no matter how large these bombs are that it can deliver from these B-52 bombers, they might not finish off the program. So I think analysts in the United States, plus people who are longtime loyal sort of supporters of Trump, like Steve Bannon, are saying, step back here, this isn't going to be effective, and this will in fact be a disaster in many regards in terms of the United States being drawn in to a much longer conflict.
What has the response been within the United States about the possibility of moving into the conflict?
Yes, as I said, I think an element of Trump's base is very much against committing US troops or very much against committing the United States to long-term conflicts anywhere in the world, and particularly in the Middle East after the experiences in Iraq and in Afghanistan. There is always within the Republican Party a side that believes the United States should use its kind of awesome military power, maybe gathered around Marco Rubio. Senator Lindsey Graham is always on the side. Fox News has been talking up how easy the war would be. But there is a contest, and I think that's been an interesting development. And one of the reasons why Trump rose in the Republican Party, he tends to represent the non-interventionist side, pushing back against the years of kind of the Bush administration, which had a much more optimistic view about what the US military could achieve. But once it broke things in those countries, it was very obvious that it didn't fix things, that things can fall apart and be even worse than they were currently. Say in Iran, there's a possibility that there could be more and a more unstable and a more challenging country to deal with. So those factional infighting, I think, is pretty important at the moment within the administration itself.
What would a possible US response look like?
Well, I think one of the things that if there is a pause in the US not intervening, they'll be looking very closely at what the Israelis will be doing over the next couple of weeks. So this may, in fact, give the Israelis a continued free hand, which the United States seems to have been giving them in this case. In previous conflicts, I think where the Israeli military have been involved with other neighbors in the Arab and Persian world, I think the United States has had more of a kind of some degree of a handbrake on what Israel is doing, where you don't see that. I think there's a relatively free hand that Israel has in this conflict at the moment. So that is, I think, one of the sort of interesting dimensions of this is the sense that the administration would prefer this is done by Israel, but it's not going to criticize or attempt to rein in Israel in this conflict.
How significant is it that Iran's foreign minister has actually agreed to meet with European officials in Geneva? Is that a positive sign?
Well, I think the Iranians are in sort of, they're in regime kind of maintenance mode. I think this is clearly one of the aims of what the Netanyahu government wants is to see the regime in Iran overturned. Now, I think that's a very dangerous move because we don't really know what would come next and maybe an overly ambitious move. But the targeting of scientists, the potential targeting of the leaders of Iran, I think puts them in a situation where they will want to negotiate. They've seen what happened to Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi in Libya. If they believe they want to survive, which I'm sure is their number one priority as the rulers of Iran, I think they'll be very open to negotiations, both with the Europeans and with the Americans, Trump's envoy in the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. So that I think is, that is a very likely sign that they'll be trying to get to some kind of negotiating table, immediately.